Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
And today we're going to dive back into deep magic from Kobold Press with ring magic.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter. Get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, we're going back into another deep dive into deep magic. This time we're looking at ring magic, and when I was looking at the list of videos we had to do, and for my homework, I was like, all right, we're doing ring magic, and I went in a totally different area. I was not thinking dwarves. I was thinking more of elves or fey creatures, and I was going to go with fairy circles or fey circles when I saw ring magic. So I was pleasantly surprised.
There's nothing wrong with, magical circles that you inscribe on the ground, and, these things could be rings that you can do cool stuff with. I looked at this and I'm like, oh, rings, I like rings, what can you do with it?
Well, I was thinking more of like the fairy rings, the mushrooms circles. So, but hey, this actually hit the spot for me. I like this a lot. So we have our credits. We have the design is from Dan Dillon. Development and editing is Steve Winter. Art director and graphic design is Mark Rattle. Cover art is Marcel Mercado. Interior art, Marcel Mercado again, and Florian Stitz. And of course, we got Wolfgang Bauer as the publisher because it's Kobold Press.
So we see a lot of familiar names that keep cropping up in these Deep Magic series, and that means that there's going to be consistency. And I'm really happy with what the product offers. And with that, you wind up getting 2 feats, 1 wizard tradition. You get 12 new spells, one of which is a cantrip, and it's a good one. You get 3 regular magic items, 1 artifact, as well as a new monster.
Now, I was thinking, like, when I was looking at the spells, I was like, man, this time around we get, like, no ritual spells, where last week we got a ton of them. Like, Ted is going to be so sad.
Nah, I mean, what's really offered here, I think there's fun, flavorful product. The spells are really indicative to what this class represents. So, like, yeah, I do as a lover of 5e. I really like the ritual casting, but here is something that's it's a great product, great set of spells. I'm not disappointed that there's no ritual spells.
So the flow for the PDF is it goes into kind of like what ring magic is, talks about linking magic and the materials, then it goes feats, then it goes traditions, then spells, then it goes magic items, then artifact, then monsters. Pretty much in order you kind of said it. So we'll start right off with the ring magic feats, and the first one we have is Circle Spellcaster.
All right, so now this one was a little bit weird. You're gonna get a bump to one of your mental stats, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and then you have the ability to essentially link minds over the course of a 2-hour ritual with another spellcaster. Once you do so, any time that one of you has to make a Constitution saving throw for concentration, you both make a check. If either of you succeeds, the concentration doesn't affect or doesn't end for who got hit. If you both fail, you wind up taking psychic damage, and all concentration spells for both of you are lost. So it's a pretty cool way to get around, that stumbling mechanic of I took damage and I gotta make a save.
And if you happen to both be warcasters, then that's 4 die rolls to try and save this spell. But at the same time, you're paying a feat for it, so I feel like it's a really heavy cost. It's interesting, not a feat I would probably take for one of my characters.
You both have to really be into the concentration type spells, and it is a step towards getting access to ring magic. A lot of the deep magic stuff does particularly say you can't get access to these spells unless you have been exposed to it in some way, shape, or form. And if you have a ring magic feat, you are then allowed to take ring magic spells when you level up, as opposed to having to find them. So that is one kind of unwritten benefit for each of the feats. So I do like it for characters that are going down that specific path, because I mean you are only trading a +1 to a stat to be able to do it.
Yeah. So the next one is Ringbound, and you have acquired ring magic imbued ring as a token of respect. You gain the following benefits: you have advantage on saving throws against transmutation spells. You can physically bind your ring token to a weapon with 1 hour of work that can be completed during your short rest. While the ring is attached to the weapon, you can use a bonus action to make the weapon magical until the start of your next turn. After activating this ability twice, you must complete a short or long rest before using it again. Which is kind of a nifty ability. I mean, you can basically take a non-magical weapon and give it a magical property. No pluses to hit or damage, but if you need to have it magical for whatever reason,
Right.
it's not bad. And you're just storing your ring on there instead of wearing it.
Yeah. And then the other ability you get is you're going to get advantage on social interaction with Ring Wardens, which is an NPC organization that they wound up crafting within the lore of ring magic. And, these are the ones who hold all the store of ring magic lore. So being able to be on friendly speaking terms with them and getting advantage on those charisma rolls of persuasion is going to be nice.
Yeah, so next we go into the Arcane tradition, Ring Warden. Now, I don't believe it specifically calls out or says anywhere that you have to be a dwarf to partake of ring magic, although it strongly implies those are the folks that are using it. So you could, unlike high elven magic, where it specifically calls out you have to be an elfin or fey in order to use that.
Yeah, like you could be anything, and it does say that non-dwarves that have learned this typically spend their time around this dwarven stronghold that has this stuff or has access to it. So, as always, it's your game. You can play however you like, but it started with dwarves. That's the lore.
Yeah, so and then if you actually visit their like secret hideout where they do this stuff, they make you swear an oath if you're not a dwarf before you can leave, and there's like a magic item that kind of goes along with it that makes sure you uphold that oath, but it also gives you some like cool benefits as well.
Right. So the first thing you get is transmutation savant. So your gold and whatnot for transmutation spells is halved. This time they cut out. Oh, it's just for the dwarf ring magic. No, it's transmutation spells. So I kind of like that idea.
You also get a bonus proficiency, and it's your choice of blacksmiths or jeweler's tools. Makes sense.
And you're going to wind up getting better with that over the course of the class.
Yeah, bonded ring staff is another ability you get at second level. So second level, you get a bunch of things going on. Starting at second level, you can create a special quarterstaff with 2 metal rings embedded in it or fastened around it. You can use your ring staff as an arcane focus. Creating an additional ring takes 8 hours of work with blacksmith or jeweler's tools and costs 5 gold pieces in raw materials. Your ring staff can incorporate a number of rings equal to your wizard level. When you roll damage for a spell while holding your ring staff, you can add your proficiency bonus to the result. If the spell generates multiple damage rolls against multiple targets, such as Scorching Ray, you must choose which roll gains the benefit before the roll. Before you roll it, you can use this ability a number of times equal to the number of metal rings fashioned into your ring staff with a maximum of your intelligence modifier, minimum of 1. You regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. So you get a little bump in damage according to your intelligence bonus. Kind of cool.
You're a wizard, so you should have a decent intelligence modifier to work with. 6th level, you're going to get Master Metalsmith, and here's a cool feature that you're going to get that can be a topic of discussion at your table, depending upon what you feel about player characters being able to craft magic items. Here, you learn a formula for a magic ring. The options that it presents are jumping, mind shielding, protection, ring of the ram, regeneration, resistance, or other options based on what your DM says. It doesn't give you the ring. You just learn the formula. You still have to go pay the gold requirement, go through the process of actually enchanting it. So pretty cool, and a happy thing. On top of that, as I said, your proficiency with your chosen tool selection winds up getting doubled here at 6th level, as well as you progress when you're enchanting and crafting items at twice the rate of any other crafter.
So it's thematic. It's cool. This 6th level ability, depending on how generous your GM is or how stingy your GM is, will determine how useful the ability to actually create a magic ring is going to be to you in your game.
But if these uh, ring mages are out there, then that okay, well, you could have one of these guys who that's their trade. They make magic rings and sell them. You could wind up trading formula. Like, oh, well, I know how to make the Ring of Regeneration. Oh, I know how to make a Ring of Resistance. Let's trade. And, now you've got access to more. Maybe that could be a quest perk if you're actually dealing with a more powerful ring mage that you're doing stuff for. I think it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like it. I think I am very stingy when it comes to magic items in my games, and I generally don't like a lot of magic creation. I can dig on this. I would definitely make the requirements a little tougher for making the ring. Like you'd have to go on adventures and quests in order to get the stuff you need to whip it up and put it together. But I would definitely allow it. So the next thing you get is Imbue Ring. Starting at 10th level, you can imbue magic into the rings embedded in your ring staff. When you cast a spell, you choose to embed a spell into one of the rings. As long as the spell is imbued, you can't regain the expended spell slot. As an action, you can remove the imbued ring from your staff and give it to another creature or hold it yourself. A creature holding an imbued ring can release the imbued spell as an action. Attack rolls, saving throws, and damage are based on the caster who imbued the ring, but the creature holding the ring counts as the spell's caster for all other purposes. The imbued ring is considered an ongoing spell for purposes of dispel magic. You can have a number of rings imbued at a time equal to your proficiency bonus.
So I really like this one. This essentially is like a little minor ring of spell storing, but it's a great way of like, oh, well, I can't cast this spell on you particularly because it's self, but I can cast it in the ring, give you the ring. Now you have a way around those spell combinations that you're looking for.
Well, that's one of the benefits. The other one being is the ring bearer would hold the concentration, not the original spellcaster. So if you're like, oh well, I want all my warriors and my rogues in the party to have haste, you give them each a ring. Now it's going to suck up all those spell slots.
That is true.
But they could all haste at the same time, and you're not concentrating on any of those spells.
That's 100% correct. They're all hasted. Meanwhile, you're, popping off your Avard's Black Tentacles or a haste of your own.
Right. So it gives you more options. I don't think it's a problem. It's not overpowered. You're going to be divest of those spell slots until they use them.
Well, until it's used and then you do a long rest or a rest to get them back. But ultimately, I really like it. 14th level, you get Ringbound. At 14th level, with an hour of work, which can be done during a short rest, you can embed a single magical ring into your ring staff. As long as you hold the ring staff, you gain the effects of the embedded ring as if you were attuned to it. But it doesn't take up one of your attunement slots. So here now is where, all of the ring mages kind of get together. They all make rings for everybody, and you pass them around. They put them all into their staff, and it's like, bam, I have this one magic staff that is possibly magic by itself. I'm attuned to it, and now I plop on my Ring of Resistance, my Ring of Protection, my Ring of the Ram, my Ring of Regeneration, and it all takes one attunement slot.
Well, not really. It says a single ring into your staff.
Oh, I misread it.
They saw you coming, Ted. Sorry.
All right.
Where's he going with this?
Sorry, I munchkined there too hard. My apologies. So, all right, you're going to get one extra attunement slot out of it.
Then we got a little blurb about ring magic in Midgard. So if you're playing in that setting, they always throw little things like that to tie it back, which is cool. Now we're getting into the spells. I guess we'll call out a few. I know for sure the one I definitely want to call out is
Hoarfrost.
Hoarfrost, the cantrip. Yeah, it's a bonus action to do it. It's a touch. You basically cast it on a weapon. It's on a weapon you're using. It lasts a minute. There's no concentration. And a melee weapon you're holding is imbued with deep cold. For the duration, a rime of frost covers the weapon and light vaporizes from it if the temperature of the surrounding area is above freezing, the weapon becomes magical and deals an additional. I didn't even remember that part. I glossed over the fact that it becomes magical and deals an additional die 4 cold damage on a successful hit. The end of the spell, you cast it again, or if you let go of the weapon. So, I mean, the fact that at first level you're creating a magic weapon, that's pretty strong, especially as a cantrip.
Yeah.
The damage isn't a big deal.
Except the fact that the damage does scale.
Yes.
So, like, when you get all the way up to 17th level and you cast this, I'm an Eldritch Knight and I'm using this thing and I attack, 4 times around. Well, that's an extra 16 die 4.
It's finally worth being a gish just for this one spell.
If I hit with all of my attacks. So, like, this is something that I'm like, I know Mark's character would be highly interested in getting access to. I know you who are playing, that complete gish, wizard fighter mage. This is something that you've already said that you want to use, so it's like, all right, well,
it is pretty good.
How do we make this happen? Neither of you are ring mages.
True.
So I like that there's Curse Ring and Enchant Ring, in case you want to mess around with people in one way, shape, or form. You cast this spell and imbue essentially a bestow curse on the ring, and somebody who willingly puts it on gets 1 effect for bestow curse. It's a fun way to mess around with NPCs, or if you've got a crafty NPC and they present a gift to the players, you could wind up having it happen that way. Enchant Ring, it's essentially the same kind of thing, but it's that person then becomes your friend, they're your ally, so you can have a lot of fun.
It's a charm person in ring form, essentially.
And
they don't know they were charmed.
And that is a fantastic ability. The monster that we get access to is something that can be summoned via the spell Create Ring Servant, which I thought was a lot of fun. And then the spell that I'm looking forward to using at some point in time in here is the 4th level Vocation Spinning Axes. And essentially you call forth 2 magically created axes that spin around you in a circle, video game style, and the things that come in wind up taking 5d8 force damage from these magical axes, and if they're not a construct or undead, they begin bleeding and take 2d6 necrotic damage for the next minute.
Yeah, I mean, there's another spell where you have rings that orbit your head, and anytime you hit something with an attack, they also get hit by one of the rings. The ring gets destroyed. They take damage. By bumping that spell, you get more rings to circle, which visually it's kind of cool, and what it does is cool. But the one spell I want to call out before we move away from spells is Circle of Devastation. It is a 9th level spell with a range of 1 mile. You can concentrate onto it up to a minute. The reason why this is important is you create a 10-foot tall, 20-foot radius ring of destructive energy around a point you can see within range. The area inside the ring is difficult terrain. When you cast the spell as a bonus action on each of your turns, choose one of the following damage types: cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, or radiant. Creatures and objects that touch the ring that are inside it when it is created, or that end their turn inside the ring, take 6d6 damage of the chosen type, or half damage with a successful Constitution saving throw. A creature or object reduced to 0 hit points by this spell is reduced to fine ash. All right, not bad.
But
at the start of each of your subsequent turns, the ring's radius expands by 20 feet. Any creature or objects touched by the expanding ring are subject to the effects immediately. Now imagine if you were to double team somebody and restrain somebody inside the ring, or even you launch this in the center of like a town or a camp, and you just each round you just destroy more of it, as time goes on. You're going to get 10 rounds of this. So, so it's, 6d6, which is really 60d6 by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's nasty.
To an area of effect, and people can take it multiple times. You can hit multiple targets. And
now, it is a 9th level spell. So
true.
we are putting this up there with things like
wish.
So it is not unheard of to unleash this kind of destruction at that level. But oh man, yeah, this was a spell that I'm like, yeah, that's nasty.
Yeah, you might need a spyglass or scrying to use it, to its fullest. But see that town over there? I really freaking hate those guys.
Well, I mean, this could literally be the start of an adventure. Like,
oh yeah, what happened? How did the? So with that, we move into magic items.
all right, so the first thing you get is Molten Fire Forge, and essentially this is a forge, a magic item that has the ability to craft magic items. So when you do a craft on it, based on its level of, magic item rarity, it can create items of a lesser rarity. So if you've got a rare forge, you can make uncommon magic items on this thing. There you go.
And it's kind of cool. And what that means is you just don't need the formula for it. You still would need the materials and have to do the work and everything. But the forge actually kind of supplies the formula.
Yeah, so, depending upon, what you would do, obviously the GM is not going to put this in the game if they're not into allowing players to craft magic items. So this is a happy thing that you could put out there should you want to allow that.
So you also get an Oathbound Ring and the Warden's Link. We won't go fully into what they do because, get the PDF and check it out. Oathbound is that ring is the thing we were talking about earlier. In order to be a non-dwarf and visit their citadel, you get a gift when you leave, and it's one of these rings that makes sure you tell the truth. But it actually gives you some benefits as well. The Warden Link is a really awesome magic item. That is a ring you can attach to some other item and makes it magic. So any magic item property, it can be in these rings, and you can then put it on anything else.
Yeah, and they talk about Warden links of varying rarities. So you could take, this is a Dragon Slayer's, instead of it being a longsword, it's a Dragon Slayer's ring that's a Warden's link, and you attach that to your axe, and it's now a Dragon Slayer axe. And
it solves a lot of problems in the game as well that come up.
Right, you could, as opposed to, darn it,
there's no magic hand crossbows.
Yeah, how do I fix that? Oh, well, you find this ring that you can somehow attach and inset or what have you, and it bestows its magic. So I think that's really a flavorful thing. And they get into, potentially there's stories out there about legendary items and artifacts that are Warden's links, but none have been seen. And then you turn the page, and it's like, but if you wanted to create one, here's a process, and here's an example.
Yeah, and basically they go and create a ring that's an artifact that you can attach to other things. It has a personal preference because it is sentient. There's a cool story that goes along with it. There's cool powers that go along with it. And also those type of items are really good for, say, you have that character that starts the game with his ancestral weapon, armor, whatever. And like these players always have that problem of, do I stick with my cool story or do I give this up in order to get something better? And so it solves that problem. So moving on, the last thing I believe we have is the monster, and that is a ring servant. It's got really cool art to it.
Oh, man, the art on this thing is fantastic.
So you need 2 rings in order to make it, and they become part of it when you cast the spell. And they become like almost like bracers on it. I was actually hoping they would be rings that go around the knuckles, and I think that's how I would do it. But that being said, it's a challenge 8 monster. It's a construct. It's decent. It flies. It's like made of energy with chunks of metal floating around it. And it also talks about the fact that there may be other versions of these that are actually permanent. And it even goes on to speak, because they're sentient, that they kind of accept their fate, that they're here for a bit and then they're gone, and they actually kind of like it that way. And it kind of talks about like how, like, if one was to become permanent, it might get like depressed. I mean, that's what I read from it. It might have trouble coming to grips with that.
Yeah, so I thought that was fantastic. As I said, as Dave says, the art on this particular monster is really fantastic. I'm overly impressed with the Deep Magics as a whole. And this is just, one more thing that you can add to your game. These things, if you're playing in your homebrew setting, you can literally just rip their lore, add it to your world, add some of that Midgard splash in there and make something that's so much cooler. And, you've got these defined stories that you can really play with.
So the question is, are you going to use this in your game? Would you, or maybe you already are using it in your game. We got a place where you can talk about it, and that is down in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
While you're down there, you can check the description and get your own copy of Ring Magic.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.